Hi, I'm Bruna Pereira. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Complutense University of Madrid, and I'll be speaking about gender and racial equality in academia. First, I will start by talking about the most significant barriers to gender and racial equality in academia. I think the first one I would like to highlight is a widespread belief that academia is a modern and open minded place that does not reproduce discrimination. So, this lack of recognition of sexism, racism, and other forms of discrimination, there's a lack of recognition that there are problems in academia or that there are relevant problems in academia. I think this is the first barrier. Also, I think the very nature of professional and personal relationships in academia, because they are structured as hierarchical relations that are proper to the academic environment, career, and progression. I think this is a barrier because it's difficult to promote a change in the profile. We see a tendency to reproduce sameness and people promoting or supporting and mentoring and indicating similar people to them in terms of racial, gender, and even class or sexual orientation profiles. Also, another barrier is the dependency on personal relations and social capital. So, understanding how academia works and being able to navigate relationships, and this is influenced by representations of women and racially minoritized people as intellectually inferior and unable to engage with or produce knowledge. And these barriers manifest in universities in different ways, in many ways. One of them is the canon or the curriculum, that we know the curriculum is biased towards white men, Western people. They are then, because of that, already from the start, they are depicted as the ones who are able to produce knowledge, to produce science, to produce relevant knowledge, and this already leaves all other groups behind. I think another way it manifests, barriers manifest in university environments, is the tolerance towards discrimination, the lack of trust on those who report some forms of discrimination and violence. So the questions raised about their intentions, and also lower expectations towards the racially minoritized and women, and that many times are reflected in the grades or also in the invitations and the promotions. So, how people are seen also influences their possibilities within academia. This is linked, of course, to broader institutional policies and practices in many different ways. I would like to highlight two. For instance, regarding both gender and race, we see the Old Boys Club with the reproduction of sameness. So, the invitation of similar people, of friends, and those who have the same profile to decision making positions, for instance, respect for authority of other white European men, but not for people with other profiles and things like that. And regarding race, I think there are few racial equalities in initiatives. They are mostly focused on anti discrimination but not on equality. And I think they also many times frame anti discrimination as helping the vulnerable instead of talking about how this vulnerability is produced So instead of talking about equality as the right to participate as equal in the academic environment and in knowledge sharing and producing. The role of, speaking about the role of power dynamics in perpetuating gender and racial inequality, I think there are many roles played by power dynamics. I think one of them relates to structural problems, relates to precarity that is proper to academic careers, early career scholars mainly, dependent on the next contract and the next contract, and this favors not reporting, for instance. And also this dependency on personal relationships, which could be tackled by a higher degree of depersonalization selection processes and evaluation. So, for instance, through anonymizations of CVs, for instance, without names, without people could be identified. The intersectionality of gender and race influence academic careers in several ways, especially for early career scholars. Of course, we have to remember when we talk about intersectionality, we're talking about systems of power. So we're talking about people who, because of the position they occupy in the social, the matrix of domination, that have more or less power. People with less power will also be exposed, and people with less power, and let's say because of their race and ethnicity, and with a more precarious situation, for instance on a temporary contract, will be more vulnerable, for instance, to experience violence, or let's say sexual harassment, everyday discriminations, and have fewer resources to address that. Also, I think this lack of power translates as many times a lack of knowledge on how to navigate academia, but also they don't get the same reward for their access to higher education, so it does not translate equally in social capital. They don't get the same possibilities from going to universities or for any kind of investment or achievement they have in academia. So the advice I would have for policymakers and academic leaders, first of the first one is to promote more opportunities for listening to people, groups of people who are discriminated against. So to promote this bottom up participatory approaches, because it's first it's important to design and implement initiatives, but also for people who are discriminated against to take property and to engage with these initiatives from the beginning, not only at the end. Second is the concern not only to promote a space to listen, to ensure that there are safe environments where people can contribute, include maybe anonymously including and not being penalized for sharing their experiences. Also, data collection should be attentive to gender and race and other forms of discrimination. And I say that both quantitative data and qualitative data. And also, of course, facilitate the articulation of collectives and raising awareness and encourage people to intervene when they witness any form of discrimination and not just let people who experience discrimination deal with it. I think the importance of projects like the Ulysses Alliance, I think is first of all sharing experiences and frameworks, and also setting a larger agenda on these topics on a regional scale. So scaling up the initiative. Thank you very much.